After years of development and the community of fans continually hoping and wishing and wanting and praying and waiting to get their hands on the next installment of the Diablo franchise, ladies and gentlemen, the Diablo 3 Beta! All right, guys, with me today is DUCKVILLELOL, the StarCraft 2 community caster, all the way from Australia. Duckville, thank you for joining the show.
No problems, no problems.
It is a pleasure to have you, and it's been fun to work with you with getting these StarCraft 2 casts out there.
Yeah, it's been really good working with you and with Stephen as well. It's been a lot of fun to get everything done and get everything out there for the guys, for guys and girls, of course, to watch. So
yeah, definitely. There are girls on the internet.
There certainly are. There certainly are, as we've sort of discovered in the past few days with some of the controversial things that have come about on Twitter and on Reddit and everywhere as well. It's been crazy.
Yeah. No, it is a lot of fun, and it's really cool that we were able to release those replays to the community casters and to have the fans be able to watch those games that are not on the red and blue stream. I wanted to highlight one of the games that you have casted after our little interview here to kind of do a game analysis and to show the different strategies of Huck versus Show. I know that you are a huge fan of Huck. How long have you been following Huck as a player?
Pretty much probably since the time he moved to Korea. So I wouldn't say I've been like on the bandwagon for a long time, but it's just the particular way that he plays is quite similar to the way that I play, because I play Protoss as well, and just his style, which seems to be a lot of he seems to favor a lot more of the Templar based play as opposed to Colossus, and I just have this huge hate for Colossus at the moment. So it's really good to actually see that the style that I play in, obviously in the very much lower sort of skill level on ladder, still actually works from time to time in the pro scene as well. Because he doesn't always get him. He doesn't always get the Colossus. So it's good to know that can work sometimes, despite some of the many bad games that I may have had whilst trying to do the same thing.
Yeah, I hear you on that. When I play as Terran, especially against Terran versus Terran, I really dislike making siege tanks. It just,
yeah,
I don't know what it is about them. I don't feel comfortable using them. I always feel I siege in the wrong places, but I'm getting more used to properly using them and to having that kind of no man's land in Terran games where it's just siege tanks versus siege tanks, whoever can like come up with the first nuke or whatnot.
And it just becomes this massive sort of placement game where you're just sort of sitting around trying to, see who can move in first and who's not going to move in first. I actually play random in team games, so I get a taste of all the races, which I suppose helps out as a caster as well, getting the feel of how some of the other races work. So,
yeah, the mirror matches sometimes can get annoying because you're used to different strategy for the races and stuff like that. But it's part of the game. It's definitely part of the game.
No, that's exactly right.
Well, how did you first get into video games? What is your history with video games in general?
I suppose as any sort of child of sort of the late sort of early to late 80s, I suppose you could say. You sort of start off mainly with one of your parents actually doing something with gaming, and I actually had when I was 4, I first played Doom on my dad's computer, and just sort of went along from there, and got a bit crazy from there. I actually had when I lived because I sort of had to live with one of my parents at one time. And it was like my own version of the dark ages of computer gaming, because I actually did not have a PC or even the internet from pretty much the age of about 7 until 16 or so. So yeah,
wow, that's a long time.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. Yeah. Like I actually there's certain things that I actually like missed out on in a way where like IRC and stuff like that. When that was sort of more popular in that sort of early 90s to late 90s period, I never got any experience with that sort of thing, like chat rooms and that sort of stuff. So that was a bit of an interesting one. But yeah, then sort of when came out of the dark ages and actually started with StarCraft initially, didn't actually play too much, but yeah, eventually sort of just got rolling on StarCraft, started watching it, and played a bit of WoW at one point, and then pretty much, yeah, I unfortunately I don't actually have a huge attention span for gaming, so it's really funny. Like I'll play for like an hour and a half or something, maybe 2 hours, and then I'll just have to switch games. It's really kind of weird, especially for some of my friends if they want to go to a LAN or something like that and play one particular game the whole time, and I'm just like, yeah, no, 2 hours is up. I'm gonna play, Day of Defeat or something like that. It's crazy. So,
Day of Defeat. Oh, I haven't played that in a long time.
yeah, I used to play that a lot, but unfortunately, none of the Australian servers actually are really that sort of popular anymore. No one ever plays here, and it's just impossible to play on American servers with the lag that we get. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Wow. Well, the internet really changed gaming as a whole. I remember, I think, geez, when did we get the internet? I was like maybe 13, 14, maybe 12, but it was definitely the dial-up, like the 56K.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but what was cool about the internet is games like StarCraft you could play online with Battle.net.
Yeah, that's right.
And I remember connecting and playing, or even connecting to other people's computers with the TCP/IP or whatever that
Yeah,
was
of
called.
course.
You could
Yeah, no,
automatically connect. So
when you had that direct link, I think probably the first game that I actually played online against someone, like not not sort of, I suppose you could say it was Doom, or Doom, maybe Doom 2, but with that sort of direct link that you can get where you actually dial into people. And but I would say probably one of the other first games that was like a full multiplayer thing was probably Descent. That was that sort of spaceship sort of flying game. But yeah, that was probably the first real game that I actually sort of started playing as a kid. So
cool, cool. Now, what is it about StarCraft that makes you a fan?
initially, when I first started playing, it would probably have been just the fact that it was whilst I suppose you could say at the time I didn't actually realize it, but just for me at the time, it was just such a complex game, and even just playing again on the campaign, because at that time when I first started playing, I didn't actually have the net. Even just playing the campaign, like doing certain things, you sort of start getting used to that, and then you move into seeing it online and seeing the Koreans doing these incredibly crazy things that they do, and
Yeah.
and then seeing eventually, of course, the foreigners as they've started to step up in the StarCraft 2 scene. But I suppose, yeah, in terms of the game, it's definitely the complexity and obviously the balance as well. It's a bit of a generic line, but it is a very balanced game in a way. And obviously we're still evolving with it at the moment in StarCraft 2. But and I suppose probably the second main thing is probably more of a recent thing, is definitely the community. We've got just this incredible growth, especially over like this past year, of course, especially with all of the various streaming services like JTV and now, which is now Twitch, of course, and obviously the various companies that are coming up with their own tournaments and things. You've got MLG, of course. You've got there's like various sort of hardware manufacturers that are doing their own things as well, like the GeForce, StarCraft Pro-Am, etc., like that. And yeah, so I suppose the scene in general is just really, really cool. It's not as much of a closed scene. Like if you go and make a forum post somewhere about StarCraft 2, you'll get your average troll that'll go in there and say that you're a total noob or whatever. But
Yeah.
you'll definitely get people who will come along and say, all right, what's your idea? We'll have some practice games, or what's your idea? We'll talk about various things you can do better and all that sort of stuff. And it's a really good way to sort of experience that sort of game. It's just really cool.
Most definitely. The community for StarCraft 2 I found to be one of the best online communities as far as helping each other out. Yes, of course, we'll have trolls, but I mean, even within the competitive scene on the ladder, 99% of the people I go up against, it's always like, good luck, have fun, good game, but occasionally I get people like, oh, you have no skill because you made 3 racks and just walked into the Protoss base. It's like, well, I needed to attack then, buddy, unless I was going to die to your 3-gate robo. I mean, that's kind of what strategy's about, you know?
No, that's right. That's right.
The timing
It's like,
pushes.
yeah, and actually speaking of the GLHF thing, I actually started playing on the Korean server just a couple of weeks ago.
Oh,
They,
wow.
like, I don't know if it's a culture thing, but or just purely a ladder thing, and they just assume if you see like a name in English or something like that that they assume you can't understand or something, but rarely ever get GLHF on the Korean server.
Hmm.
I don't know if that's just me, but it's really weird. That's one thing I've noticed. I'm actually gonna sort of start talking about that more on my website about the various things I've found on the Korean server. But that was a really weird one that I noticed. So.
That's interesting. Maybe because they're so busy trying to keep that APM up, doing other things so they can't.
Yeah, you got to
die.
highlight those workers at the start of the game. You
Yeah.
can't just let them highlight themselves. That's just never going to work.
Which
so.
is why the APM functionality is changing in the next patch. Or a friend of mine told me, and I believe it's written down. You can read for yourself, but that the clicking of the or the little boxes that you make at the beginning to highlight all the workers is not going to count towards your APM. So
Yeah,
they're going to
I think
adjust it.
it's yeah when you press like because at the moment if I remember correctly it's if you press a hotkey like if you're pressing 1 and 2 sort of thing and if you press 1 like 5 times that counts as an action but now if you press 1 5 times it only counts as one action so that doesn't contribute as much to your APM which is what a lot of people do but
Yeah,
yeah
yeah, they just like select. If you watch his hands, like I mentioned in my last show, he is so fast. And I don't know if he's
yeah
actually issuing any commands, if he's just actually hitting the buttons and cycling through.
yeah exactly
Which I mean, I don't think it's going to be a huge change to the actual gameplay.
nah
People. I mean, I do it at the beginning to keep my hands kind of warm and going fast, but at the same time to be like, yeah, look at my APM. It's like I'm in the hundreds. And then it drops down once I start fighting because I'm too spread out and I start thinking, which is what you shouldn't do in StarCraft 2. If you stop to think, you're dead. You have to just react and flow.
Yeah, just all becomes muscle memory, and it's just a bit of oh my hands sort of just flicked across and pressed E or A or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't actually mean for that to happen, but it's working.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Man. Well, what's inspired you to start casting?
Probably I actually the first sort of proper tournament that I watched was back in 2000 and oh well like apart from the Korean sort of cast which I used to watch obviously a long time ago but sort of the foreigner based ones where Tasteless was casting with he was eventually with Super Daniel Man at the time on GOM TV for the Brewbor Avatech Intel Classic and I actually watched with one of my best friends, and we we sort of just started watching, and it was just heaps of fun to actually have it as a bit more of an English-based cast, and it was just really cool. And then, I sort of started looking at it, and at the time, because of my background, I wasn't a super awesome brew ball player, but then, when StarCraft 2 came along, I sort of figured, I'll try and do my best to learn a bit more about the game and actually get some skills so I can do it a bit, do some casting and give it a go. So it started off with a 2v2 tournament, which a website that I was part of for a little bit, which is unfortunately not around anymore. But started off with that and sort of progressed from there. It's been a lot of fun, I think. And also, there aren't. I think there's maybe like apart from the obvious ones of Unstable and a couple of other people, there aren't really many community casters apart from in the Australian scene. So it was good to sort of do that, perhaps just to, that's one of the main reasons why I actually do it, is to sort of just bring a little bit of attention to the Australian and Southeast Asia side of things where, we don't get as much coverage. Of course, we don't actually have, a bunch of pro gamers. We've got a couple maybe that are actually of high quality international level, and that's really about it. So I try and do a lot of Australian casts of either of some of my friends who are much higher ranked, or like some of the guys from the proxy team, or just some of the local tournaments and that sort of thing, that if I can get my hands on the replays. So it's pretty much just to try and help out with the local scene, I suppose, is the main sort of goal why I do it.
Right on, right on. Do you cast any other games, or you just stick with StarCraft 2?
Uh, it's a interesting topic because at the moment, actually, a while back, I actually used to do like compilation videos. You know, like some of those ones that are on various sites, like with MLG's compilation stuff or with the IPL compilation, like the top 10 sort of things like that. I used to do those, but for Dota. So I
Oh
have a
wow.
few of those still on the channel, yeah. And but other than that, no. At the moment, I just sort of sticking with StarCraft 2, sticking with what I know, I suppose. The controversial part about it is that Diablo 3 lingering in the distance is quite tempting to me, and I don't know how you could actually uh, make a sort of casting thing out of it. I suppose perhaps with the arena thing that they've got, but that could be something that I might look at in due time. So.
Oh, most definitely. I am so pumped for that game, and having played the PvP arena at BlizzCon last year, I that's what I did for most of the event. Like I would skip out on other stuff. Like I have to make a confession. I would even skip out on some of the StarCraft 2 tournament stuff going on. I would
Ooh.
come and watch during more of the semifinals and the finals, but for most of the time, man, I was playing the heck out of Diablo 3. I loved it, and the PvP arena is so much fun, and it is fun to watch, and it is so fast and action oriented. It's not like the WoW PvP arena where it's just running around a pillar and
Yeah,
throwing
yeah,
off
where you
heals.
just
It's
and,
not
and
like
going
that.
invisible for 15 minutes.
Uh,
God,
yeah, no,
I
it's
actually, that's probably the like in my opinion one of the worst things to that I've ever watched was watching. They actually had some WoW stuff on GOM TV a little
mhm.
while back, and it was just like, okay, the rogue is invisible and he's been that way for 15 minutes.
Yeah,
All right, something's eventually going to happen. Okay, cool. Now it's ended after 5 seconds. Cool.
yeah.
It's,
That's that game and that format. May be fun to play, but it does not translate well into a spectator esport
yeah,
at all.
exactly,
I definitely
exactly.
feel that Diablo 3 has that potential and more.
Mm,
It's just based on what Blizzard wants to do with it, But if the community is there, which I'm pretty sure it will be, then
mm,
it can definitely turn into an e-sport. So it's really exciting. I just hope the beta comes out soon. We're really, really pumped for it. Do you have any?
definitely.
Do you have any casters that are your favorite? Obviously, besides yourself, but are you inspired by anybody else, or do you like to watch anybody else?
I actually sort of go onto each of my own videos and press the like button. Not really,
Yeah,
not
who doesn't?
really. um, I suppose out of the top tier, the god tier, if you will, of the casters, I like DJ Wheat a lot.
Hmm.
His style. Obviously, I think he's a bit more of the play-by-play style, but he does a really good job of it. And apart from DJ Wheat in sort of the big name scene, it'd have to be Lee Hyun-joo from the Korean casters of GSL, and it totally has nothing to do with the fact that she's ridiculously hot. Um, but I suppose out of the community casters, I suppose you've got Adebisi, who does a really
Hmm.
great job as well. And there are a couple of other um, really sort of super unnamed sort of casters. You have 10 sort of subscribers, but they're doing a good job of actually just sort of putting some games out there and giving it a shot, which is really I think what a lot of the casting community is about. If it's not about just actually, holy crap, I found this really awesome replay on the internet, I'm going to cast it just for some fun. It's about actually sort of casting some stuff and just showing people what's out there, and it's really good. So yeah,
Yeah,
those are some of
and
my favorites.
it's really cool to see them do it and to emulate what they're doing, and even if you're able to contact them to see how they're doing it, what kind of hardware and software they use, which is
Mm.
important for the quality. And honestly, with an audience and the internet and with HD technology, the better the quality, the more viewers you can have, and the easier it is to advertise the videos.
Yeah, that's right. And I think there are some really good stories about the casting scene as well. Like I think the one of the stories with Total Biscuit getting his partnership on YouTube, and I think if I remember correctly, I don't actually know the full story, but I'm pretty sure that like Husky helped out with that. I can't actually remember, but it was just a cool story like that, and things like that which happen a lot. And yeah, I have actually had a few people say, what sort of gear are you using? And actually, just yesterday I had uh, a female caster who's of course a much rarer thing in the community as well, but actually just asking me, what sort of programs do we use, what sort of systems, that sort of stuff, and it's really good to help out with that sort of thing. So.
It is. Well, while we're on the topic, what kind of hardware and software do you use? Like, what kind of microphone? What kind of editing software?
I have actually got for the mic. I've just got a standard sort of Razer headset. I know a lot of people use just sort of fancy sort of microphones with with voice blockers and things like that on them or whatever. But I've just got a headset. I've got using Fraps to record, Sony Vegas to put it all together, and I use Audacity for the audio. You can technically use Fraps to record the game sound and the voice as well, but sometimes I get these really weird things in my cast sometimes where I need to play around with the audio, which is good in Audacity. So
And Audacity is a free program.
it
I've
certainly
used
is.
it as well for editing. Well, also, as much as we can put it on our computer and do the editing and the sound works, we have to publish it. We have to put it in a distribution system. And the internet in particular with Justin TV, or now Twitch TV, YouTube, MLG.TV now is posting these VODs. It's cool to have these different forums to post these videos, and for a forum like YouTube where you can post pretty much any video you want as long as it conforms to their regulations.
Yep.
And we've seen their growth continue to evolve, and their functionality continue to evolve as more people have gotten broadband, as their servers have grown, and as their popularity has grown. Do you feel that these formats can improve in any way?
I think most of the services, like those sorts of things, the platforms that you've mentioned, are actually they're doing a great job. I suppose from like just purely as a nitty gritty type of thing where it's really very small sorts of things. A couple of them, especially JTV and Twitch TV, I feel as if their social media sort of integration could be a little bit better. As I said, it's a very small picky thing, but just sometimes when you want to sort of if you want to tweet that you're streaming or something like that, I actually do it manually myself because I just wish there was a button that actually said just like bam and you're streaming. There is a version of that on Twitch, but I don't know, it could be a little bit simpler. But other than that, I think that facet of the community is doing a great job in helping out the casters, especially, of course, and just making it more accessible. And I think that's the key part. Like, if you really wanted to as a caster now, if I wanted to, let's just say there was an event going on right now at 10:30 at night down at the local net cafe, you could head down there, take your phone, and just record some content there. You can have a look around, as we've seen with the GSL Code A qualifiers. Like I think the last qualifiers we saw Artosis and there was one dude, I totally forgotten his names. There was one guy just running around with a tiny little like a little handy cam sort of thing, just recording stuff and just either streaming it directly or actually uploading it straight to YouTube. And those sorts of things are just really cool for actually making sure that things continue to grow. So yeah, I guess there's not really too much to improve. There will be the odd things which people will pick up on, but as a whole, I think everyone's doing a really good job.
Yeah, and each of these platforms is in perpetual beta continually. It's not the final
That's
version.
right.
They're continuing to add more features, and like you brought up, the social media aspect, that is true for that connectivity. So it is really cool, and it has been instrumental in allowing casters and other producers. I mean, you are a producer. You produce content and you post it to post it and have a distribution system. So it is very cool. It's interesting times on the internet. All right, let's talk briefly about Heart of the Swarm. We have some details coming out. We don't know exactly which units will be changed or removed or added. Do you have any concerns about Heart of the Swarm of changing the game of StarCraft, or are you more intrigued of what's going to happen, or what are your feelings about that?
I'm as we've all obviously, I would hope, if you haven't actually seen them, make sure you go out and watch the new trailers and things that have been out, especially those sort of in-game trailers which were just released. What was it, like last month or something like that?
Yeah.
We've all seen like those evolution things for the Zerg just look absolutely awesome. Like those look really cool to play around with. It seems a little bit like there's that sort of like the augmentation system in Deus Ex, which is sort of like a little bit of an influence there. I know it's obviously not, but that same sort of RPG feel about it is there, where you can say, we had that obviously in Wings of Liberty, where you could upgrade the various units and that sort of thing. And I think for the moment, it sort of looks as if they're taking that a tiny bit further as well, which is just really cool. So I really hope that looks really good. I'm actually a big fan of the single-player versions of the games. Like, I know a lot of people will purely be in it for multiplayer, but the single player is always a good part to focus on as well. But in terms of concerns, not really. I suppose as a long-time Brood War fan, I've really wanted the Reaver to come back, but I'm sure if you introduce that somehow, a lot of Zerg players, there would be tears all over the floor if the Reaver was to come back.
Yeah.
But, look, I'd be happy to take a Reaver instead of a Colossus. I mean, that'd be awesome. But no, I think it looks good. I would really hope, actually, I suppose one concern would be, I would hope that they would revamp a lot of the things on Battle.net. It's like a lot of the chat functionality. It seems really like some parts of it just seem really antique. Like there are obviously these various things which they are fixing up in this next patch, like the busy status and people inviting you to parties and that sort of stuff like that, which are really going to help a lot of the pro gamers, I think. But it just feels as if there is still something, like there are a few things that are there, and there are a few things that could be missing. So I'm hoping that there's perhaps a little bit of a revamp of Battle.net in a way, but obviously, who wants chat rooms? So
yeah, well,
see what happens,
they had from the post last year, a year and a half ago, they had delayed StarCraft 2 for working on Battle.net 2.0 to kind of fix it up and fix the functionality of it. But I also believe that it was the cross-game capability that they had to focus on as well, because you can talk to people in-game for World of Warcraft, Diablo 3, and StarCraft 2, which I think is really cool, how you can switch between and be able to connect to your friends on each game. But yeah, there has been a lot of the feedback from the community saying, like, it's not a well-made system. The chat rooms are like an afterthought. We still don't have the map marketplace that they had talked about, which hopefully will be released. In my personal opinion, I haven't really had too much of an issue with Battle.net because I get on there to play the game. And I think the matchmaking system on Battle.net is the best matchmaking system in the history of video games so far.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it is incredible. So if I had to have a prettier Battle.net or a better matchmaking system, I would have chosen the better matchmaking system. So
definitely. Like a lot of initially, a lot of people were complaining about the sort of white space where there was just this blank sort of section of the UI and everything like that. But I think those sorts of things, it's not really too much of a problem if you think about it. As you said, you come on to play the game. You don't come on to socialize. If you want to do that, go and sit on Facebook or something. But
which you can connect to on Battle.net.
Exactly. You can talk to your friends and everything. But yeah, I think there are a lot of points to both that Blizzard have done a great job with it, and obviously there are some parts, as you said, like with the matchmaking system, with some parts of the friends system and everything like that, which are really good. But yeah, hopefully they can do a couple more revamps, just a few more things to make sure it's all perfect, and I'm sure everyone will be happy, which never happens, but we can all hope for the best.
Yeah, and Blizzard, even though it takes them a while, really comes through with their games, and they do listen to the community. I just feel that once Diablo 3 is released, it's really kind of a push for them to make sure the compatibility with Battle.net 2.0 works with all the games, and from there, I'm sure they can maybe focus it a little bit more. I mean, once Diablo 3 is released,
Definitely.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know how many people are working on that game, but I'm sure it's a lot. Well, you had mentioned the Australian scene a little bit as far as the number of pro gamers. What is what is the video game or StarCraft culture like in Australia compared to Korea, compared to Europe, compared to America? How do you feel about what video games and StarCraft means to your country and your community compared to the rest of the world?
It's a really good question because a few people have actually asked me previously, like, when a lot of people, for some reason, like some people have real trouble identifying accents, which I find really funny on YouTube, and a lot of people say, are you from Ireland? And I'm like, no, dude, like total other side of the world. But anyway, and then they sort of ask, what's it like in the Australian scene and that sort of thing, and I suppose, like, if you look at it, I suppose probably the easiest way to explain it is if you look at it on a scale where, in terms of interactivity with the community and the depth, sort of the penetration of esports, or at least StarCraft, into the scene where Korea is a 10 and, 1 is Antarctica or something, you would probably put Australia at about a 4, where we've actually started, people have started getting the idea and have started getting it, and like in that sort of situation, I would probably put the US maybe like a 6 or a 7, at least a 7, where the big sorts of, where you've got big events and that sort of thing, which are now starting to come up. You've got companies, like, obviously there are the various sponsors for all the sorts of events that go on, and those have started, chipping in and seeing that, this is actually a big market. But here in Australia, we're still sort of waiting for that situation where you can say, we've got the Australian League Gaming going on next month or whatever, down in Melbourne or in Perth or something like that. So it's sort of still like, it's still in a very much like a child sort of phase in a way, just because there are also various things about gaming here which still haven't been taken seriously. Like, it's only just last month that the government that we have here has actually agreed in theory for like an R18 level for gaming. Where you've got those sorts of games that obviously have a bit more violence or whatever, or adult themes or whatever. They've only just agreed that they might be able to put that in so that we can get some certain games which are of that level. Like, perfect example, Left 4 Dead 2. Legally speaking, you couldn't get the like the full version of Left 4 Dead, where you're cutting up heads and bloods everywhere and all that sort of stuff.
Uh-huh.
In our legal version of Left 4 Dead 2, you kill one of the zombies and then their body just disappears. Nothing else actually happens. It's
Okay.
It's like, yeah, it's
All right.
really crazy. Like the, but yeah, finally we've started breaking in with that sort of thing, and obviously, as I mentioned, there are various tournaments that go on, like especially in the main sort of cities in Australia, Sydney and Melbourne. We have a lot of tournaments going on, which are just starting to get big. We've got the various internet cafes that have really gotten into the gaming scene as well, and of course our own sort of version of Barcraft. We've got Mana Bar up in Brisbane and down here in Melbourne, which I'm actually going to next week, which should be a bit of fun, where you've actually got a sort of more of a gamer focused like bar sort of thing, which is good. So we're getting there, but it's still a little way behind America and sort of way behind Korea. So we're eventually going to get there.
Yeah. We hear from the news on releases of games, most notably lately was Mortal Kombat, how I believe it was not even released in Australia because of the content. Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's true. To be quite honest, I didn't actually pay that much attention to it because I'm terrible at fighting games. But I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure if it was released, it was actually a cut down version. Like what was it in something like in Mortal Kombat? You could actually see the bones that you're breaking or something
Yep,
crazy
the
like that.
X-ray moves you
Yeah.
can, yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that that definitely wouldn't be released here. So, yeah, but,
Another game was The Witcher 2, where the developers had said that there would be no censored version of the game, and then
yeah,
yet for I think for Australia and New Zealand they did have a bit of a censored version. So
yeah,
we do hear about those things, especially because of on the forums.
yeah,
People in
definitely.
Australia will be like, "No, why?" They'll get
With
upset
yeah,
about it.
and yeah, no, it's you get those reactions, and we just sort of sit here and it's like, well, okay, I'm 25 years old. I'm pretty sure I know that there are going to be various things I can see in video games, and I may see a head get cut off, but it's my own decision. Shouldn't be like a government's decision or something like that. But
Yeah,
there there are some ways, like obviously, of course, there are the various sort of non-legal ways around it, but sometimes there are some various games that can slip through things like Steam, which
hmm
somehow we can still get the full versions without it being illegal in the context of that that you sort of make a patch to the game or something like that and sort of cheat your way around it. But
yeah.
there are some weird things that can happen, especially with Steam. So I
So
don't know.
So technically, some of the rated mature games can be contraband in Australia if it's
I-
it.
Technically speaking, yeah. Like
Wow.
if you, yeah, if like they can be contraband in a way. So I don't know. It's just a crazy topic, and hopefully over the next probably 12 months, if not less, hopefully the big the big suits and everything up in the government can actually get something done, and we don't have to worry about it at all ever again. So
Yeah. Well, within American culture, as far as media, there's a lot of violence, and we get desensitized to it kind of quickly because we grow up watching it. I mean,
mm,
not the the cartoons are fine, but it's more of like the PG-13 movies and leading up into the R-rated movies. That's what it has. And in video games, they'll definitely have a mature rating for violent video games. But if there's nudity, oh my goodness, everybody goes nuts. I mean, there's nudity in
yeah,
this game. I can't believe it. Oh my gosh. Or if there's nudity in a film, and people just go to the film just to see that part. That's how it was, kind of in the 80s and 90s. Um,
yeah,
and if I take a step back, I find it kind of funny that if somebody gets their head chopped off, it's okay. But if you show breasts, that's a no-no.
yeah,
So,
exactly. They're
uh,
not even real. They're not even real.
yeah, it's video games itself have been, have pushed the envelope as far as controversy because not of the content itself, because we have seen that already in movies being depicted, but it's the
The topic itself.
mentality of the politicians and of the older folks that did not grow up with video games and equate video games to children, and they think, well,
Mm,
children will be playing this. We can't have this if the children are playing it. We must help the children. I mean, that's what it always comes down to. It's like the children, which of course, I wouldn't want a young child exposed to these things in video games, but that's where the parents step in.
exactly.
They need to be aware of what their kids looking at. And I'm not saying they have to be harsh and totally dominating in the house. It's just you should teach your kid correct principles and let them govern themselves when they become, teenagers or older. And it's unfortunate, man, that people that make the laws are not familiar with what they're making laws about. They don't play these
Mm,
games. They're not familiar with the video game community and what these video games can offer, or what is the spirit of the game. You could definitely have violence in a video game, but what's that violence entailing? Is it somebody defending themselves? Is it war?
mm,
Is it
mm.
killing monsters? So
Yeah, if you had a video game about someone, you know, running over someone to protect a church or something like that, that could be fine. But It's
Yeah.
just it's just kind of weird. And I think actually your point there about the difference in the American culture to Australia is a good point as well, because I think it's kind of a weird conundrum there, but because we always get things in terms of technological things, we always get them a lot later than the rest of the world, just purely because of various reasons, and of course because we're quite far away. But because gaming and that sort of thing was a little bit later here than it was for the US, you could make the argument that the people who didn't grow up with gaming, such as like the much older politicians and that sort of things that look after these sorts of things, may not be around for the American culture, which is why things may be a little bit different. Whereas those people can still be around here because gaming was a much later sort of thing. So it's I suppose one thing to think about as well when it comes to that.
Well, hopefully, in the future, leaders in both of our countries or throughout the world will better understand the realm of video games to make more educated decisions on ratings, on censorship, and things like that. So it's getting there. Our generation is getting older. I mean, we are pretty much the video game internet generation, and and the more knowledge that you have, the better decisions you can make. In all aspects, I think. So.
That's right. And if they don't get it, then at least make them play it so we can just smash them at a game.
Down! Yeah. Most definitely, my friend. Well, thank you so much for your insight and for your answers. It's great to have you on the show as a community caster, and you can see Duckville LOL's casted matches on MLG.TV for both Raleigh and Anaheim, and I'm sure we'll have you cast some of the matches for Orlando. And right now, we're going to take a quick break, but before that, Duckville, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I just obviously, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, just sort of starting up my own site as well, which is going to be, I'm trying to make it a little bit more like a developer's sort of commentary version of a website where if you want to ask questions about casting or if you want to get involved with that sort of thing or the general scene, then you can jump on the site and ask me a question, or if you want to perhaps contribute like a post or something like that yourself about the StarCraft scene, then you can always do that, which is on DUCKVILLELOL.com, and still developing the site a little bit at the moment, but yeah, that's the sort of aim of the site, and of course we'll have various things for my casts and things like that as well, so it should be a bit of fun, and yeah.
Right on, right on. Well, make sure to check out that website. And so, guys, we're going to take a quick break, but we come back. Duckville and I are going to cast a game of Huck versus Show and to focus on the strategies of both the players. So, we'll see you in a second. Welcome back, guys. Clutch here with Duckville LOL, casting a game of Huck versus Show. Huck in the bottom right corner, Show in the top left corner. And Duckville LOL and myself will be focusing more on the macro strategies, the positioning of the different units. You can also see this same match casted by Duckville on the MLG.TV website. Duckville, are you ready?
Certainly am. Let's get rolling.
All right. 3, 2, 1, go. So, have you take it off, my friend? Go ahead and start us out with what's going on here.
Well, we've got obviously just the basic sorts of things here. We've got Show up the top and Huck down the bottom. Tal'Darim, pretty cool map for PvT especially. Like I find personally that a lot of games can be easily won with a version of a fast expand on this map, just because it can be really good for Protoss to get off to a good start like that, and there can be certain strategies as well that really help on this map. Like Some Terrans will go for a bit more of a mech style on this map and try and push across the map with tanks and Hellions and that sort of thing. But if you like a lot of people have started using warp prisms, and I really feel that if you can actually use warp prisms, if not one, then a couple more, obviously White Rust style, then you can really take advantage of the fact that it's such a huge map, and there are just so many ways to get around the map and try and drop on your opponent. And if a Terran's doing that particular style where they're going for a mech style play or something like that, then you can really take advantage of that.
Yeah, most definitely. You know, the map positioning, the map scale is key in the different strategies you want to use. I always find it difficult as Terran to have to go against those proxy pylons by Protoss because they can easily reinforce their first wave. And so having better map control at Terran earlier in the game is very important. I just want to comment on the chatter back and forth between Show and Huck there, talking about the Diablo 3 beta key. I tell you what, I'm going to be pretty distracted too for playing StarCraft 2 when that game comes out.
Yeah, exactly. As you were mentioning before, I'm actually kind of I've mentioned it to a couple of people who sort of regularly follow my casts and everything, and I've said, you know, I could be gone for a while when Diablo comes out, and they're kind of like, no. So we'll have to see what happens, I guess.
Yeah, that's we'll definitely see what happens. I mean, people might want to switch over. I don't know how big the Koreans will be about Diablo 3. Maybe that can be the European and American niche of dominating, but we will see. But it's just another testament of Blizzard, you know, making these really high quality games and taking their sweet time to do so, but to make sure that is near perfection when it's released. So we have Marine out here, 2 Marines from Show. We have 1 Gateway from Gosu Huck, from Huck with the Stalker coming out. He's on 2 gas. So with Protoss hitting 2 gas, what should a player like a Terran look for when he scouts a Protoss base and sees those 2 simulators?
Once you get in, you really need to... there are a couple of things. I actually have been talking to a friend just recently about this, that the Terrans have to be really careful about how much gas is actually being mined. Like a lot of people will idly just walk into a base and see, oh yeah, there's 2 geysers there. But if 2 simulators, I should say, if you really want to focus on the gas that's there, that's actually inside, obviously you just click onto the simulator, have a look at how much remaining gas there is, and then you can actually determine, like, this geyser has exactly the same amount as my one has, so he's done that at that particular timing. But the thing is, which especially Huck does a lot, is he does grab his second assimilator some of the time and then doesn't actually mine from it, so you can actually tell when he is going to go for that fast expand, as he has done here. As we can see, he's taken that the Nexus down there at the natural expansion while he's just scouting out with that Stalker. So you can sometimes see exactly what they're going to do based on how much gas is actually there. And one of the other things as well is DT expansions. A lot. I tell you what, I've encountered so many Terrans on ladder that have just no idea how to read that a DT expansion is coming along, where you just grab 3 gates and push out a few DTs to harass the Terran. And it's sort of one of those things where you have to really be on the ball with your scouting. Like, as I said, having a look at exactly how much gas is there, and then having a look at how much the types of units that are being pushed out as well. Like, if you see 3 zealots and 1 stalker, then you can probably have a good guess that there could be some DTs or something of that sort of type coming along. So
exactly, because they're saving up the gas to push for those DTs to come out as fast as they can. They probably are going to try to hide the Dark Templar building. I can't remember. Is it Dark Templar Shrine? Or, yeah, that's what it's called.
Dark Shrine.
Dark Shrine. Yeah. I don't play Protoss at all. I just kill them. So I don't even read the buildings when I blow them up with my Marauders and Marines.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. You shouldn't need to. So,
yeah. But when I do see that building, or if I look at the replay and show that they had positioned it way out of the way to where I'd scout, I think, oh man, that was so smart, but it infuriates me so much.
That's right, and as we can see here, Huck's actually going straight for that Stargate there. He's put it down in the bottom right-hand corner of the base, as you said, just trying to hide things with some good positioning there. There are actually, in some of the positions on Tal'Darim, you can see down in Huck space at sort of the bottom middle section of the base, there's that tree there. You can, if you want to be really sneaky, it's obviously not 100% effective, but you can put buildings in some spots under trees like that, and sometimes people might not notice it, and or at least notice it the first time when they actually check your base. So that's one thing. But obviously he's put the fleet beacon down in the corner as well, which is very cool. So
yeah,
very
carrier
excited to
play
see that.
is I've seen that recently actually of some people using carriers, but just did not do too well against my Marines. Let's look over at Show here. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4 barracks going on, and a factory, and a starport. So with Terran versus Protoss, Terran usually going bio-heavy at the beginning. And he has 3 Hellions here, try to get some map control and scout out what's going on. Again, that's really key as Protoss to know what's going, or as Terran, or as any race really, is to know what's going on in the map, to not just turtle up and sit in your base the whole time. And there he is kind of microing his Hellions there. Hellions not really doing a whole lot of damage against the Stalker. They're more for against the light units, but 3 against 1 will definitely take the Stalker out. He will get that Zelnaga tower and push out maybe a little bit, knowing kind of what his opponent is doing, while some Marines and a Marauder are taking out that rock.
That's right, yeah.
One of the difficult parts, too, of playing any race is knowing when to get your 3rd expansion. Do you have, or have you noticed any patterns within the races and when they get their 3rd? Is it at a specific time in the game? Is it when they have a specific supply?
It can be very dependent on the player. Like, there are certain players such as Huck and White-Ra who will get a very quick 3rd against certain, against like Zerg especially, but and sometimes against Terran, as we may see here. Huck's just putting down the pylons down there at the 3rd base, but and shooting down the rocks with those Stalkers as well. But it can be very dependent on the player in terms of the pro gamer. But in terms of your average Joe who's playing, it's pretty much just a decision on what you can see from your scouting, and of course what units you have as well. Like generally a Protoss will probably want to try and look at getting a 3rd on certain maps such as this. Once you have maybe 1 Colossus out, or at least a Colossus style unit. And I suppose from Huck's perspective, you can actually have a look just on the right-hand side of the map. He certainly does have a rather large unit over in the corner, but he's certainly in a position at the moment, I think, just with the vision that he's had. He knows that natural expansion's gone up from Show, and he should be fine to take this 3rd without too much hassle. Now, if you have a quick look at Show's vision, that actually just sort of, it shows, no pun intended, exactly what he can see. And if you have a look there, he has actually not scouted at all. It's pretty much the big thing about Show, which Day9 has pointed out time and time again, and I'm pretty sure even Artosis has mentioned it as well, is that Show rarely ever does like full scouting and that sort of thing. He pretty much, I think the quote from Show was that he will just, the scouting doesn't reveal the information he needs, like useful information, and even if it is a cheese, he wouldn't actually change his builds based on that. So interesting part of the way Show plays is to just pretty much never scout. So.
That is very interesting. I feel that if I scout at the right time, I definitely can prepare or counter what the opponent is building, especially if I see an early Roach Warren from Zerg. I know, hey, build some Marauders and a lot more Marines, and either bunker down or move in fast with what I have. So it's based on kind of that decision. But yeah, scouting and harassment. Oh my goodness, a mothership.
Is out. Is coming over to cloak up those units here. Now, we've obviously seen a lot of play. Actually, I suppose it's not a lot, but generally you can see from time to time players getting out a mothership. Now, you can use it a couple of ways. Of course, you can engage with the mothership, which a lot of people try and do, but I personally feel it's not the best way to utilize the power of a mothership. You can use it for doing as they once did in Brood War, where you can take it in the back and try and recall into your opponent's base. Haven't actually seen too many people try that, but I'm sure it could be used that way. But the other way is for just defensive purposes, where as we can see here, Huck may just try and use it to recall some of these Stalkers, which is a pretty good tactic. You try and just take the Stalkers in and blink away, and then if you get into real trouble, just recall them out. So it's a pretty cool unit to have out, but I think you do have to be very careful with the way you use it. You can be much more passive than people think you need to be. Like, just because it's the mothership and it's the only one you can have doesn't mean you need to just run into the face of 63 Vikings, because it's obviously not going to win.
Yeah, exactly. Well, a little skirmish going on in the mid here. Hunk using his blink to go back and forth, just doing some harassment against Sho's forces. Now, this would be kind of a nice time for Sho to do a drop if he had a couple more drop ships here to do more of that harassment. I think that within the Korean playstyle, especially with MMA's playstyle, of the amazing drops he can do while still having a frontline army, if you will, going back and forth with his opponent is very key for that terror harassment and to really kill the economy of your opponent. I think Sho has spotted the mothership here. Try to check his sight. Maybe not, but I'm sure anybody would be surprised to see a mothership on the field.
Exactly. Especially Huck. From the plays I've seen from Huck, it's very, very, very rare for him to do something like this. And I think, as I mentioned before, the fact that pretty much everyone knows that Sho just doesn't scout much. You can do something like this, and it's not completely stupid. So, just come out with a surprise mothership and just go crazy with it, because Sho is just not prepared for it until he actually sees it in the battlefield. So, it's and I feel so far that Huck may not have actually utilized it as best as he could. He could be blinking up into the into the natural expansion, taking out some SCVs and then recalling the Stalkers out. It's a very great tactic to use, but as you can see, they are trying to fight out just here in the middle again, and it looks as if Huck's going to lose some of those Stalkers, and he's going to pull the mothership into the battle now, I think.
Ooh, some back and forth play between Huck and Sho. Sho coming around the bottom left area there with two ghosts. Sniping the Dark Templar. Nice sniping capabilities. I always feel sometimes it's hard to choose between sniping or EMP, but it looks like he had enough energy for both. And the EMP on the mothership. The mothership taking some damage. There's a vortex, though. It's going to stop the advancement of Sho's forces. What a pretty graphic we hardly get to see. Very cool looking.
Very cool, considering, especially now after the patch that made it so that the units inside, once they come out, they're invulnerable for a second. You rarely see people use it. You used to see it all the time for the old Archon toilet, as Day9 used to call it. But
yeah, well, the mothership's still there doing some damage. Zealots just wrecking face against those Marauders, and Sho is trying to get out of there using his micro capabilities with Stim to try to kill those Zealots. Zealots do not have charge. Zealots now have charge and are charging in, or at least the charge had to be refreshed for them to get in there and kill those Marauders. However, there's some of Sho's reinforcements in the mid. Submarines trying to do some DPS against those Zealots. However, there's a Guardian shield from the Sentry. Oh, will they be able to make it? No, it looks like Sho's forces have got to get out of there. A dropship picking up some people and moving.
Trying to run away with that one pretty quick.
Oh,
there's a really good force field at the back there from Huck, just to try and corner the units at that high ground position, just because of that force field not allowing them to retreat back any further. It was nice to see that from Huck. He's obviously well known for his micro and, of course, the force fields as well. So doing a great job with those two particular facets of his game there.
Let's go ahead and pause it at 9:40. And I'm going to make a quick adjustment here to my sound. I think my sound's a little bit too loud of people getting killed there. Anyway, let's look at what the different players have going on. We have Sho in the top left corner. He is constantly making orbital commands to drop some mules here. That could be an interesting strategy to try to get rid of some SCVs to free up some supply and use that energy from those orbital commands to spawn mules, to drop some mules to continue the mining. He is at 1, 2, 3, 4 bases right now, while Huck is starting his 4th and 5th base up in the middle right area. The production, carriers are coming out for Huck.
Yep, it's got them on the way.
Yeah, that always seemed to be such a such a popular unit of choice for Protoss and Brood War, especially when people were playing on big game hunters. They would just get it'd be mass carrier versus mass carrier, and they'd throw like one arbiter in. Let's look at the units here. The economy, or the amount The Army for show is 10,000 minerals, and for the technology and Army value is higher than Huck's there, it seems. However, Huck, with that mothership able to have that cloaking capability, the range on the mothership adds some more DPS against Show's forces here.
That's right. In the new patch, sorry, we'll see in the new patch as well that the mothership gets a little bit of a speed boost, hopefully. So that could see the increase of usage of the mothership as well, which should be quite fun for some of the Terrans and, of course, perhaps some of the Zerg as well. But I'm sure the Terrans would be the main target of more mothership usage in the next patch if that does come into fruition. So.
Yeah, and also they're fixing the quote-unquote lag issue with the mothership spawning and not causing the game to blip a bit because it's automatically covering.
It's a sign.
Yeah, covering the units in the cloak, and then go, uh-oh, that's the mothership sign. So.
Yeah.
Well, looking at the units killed, the workers killed, only one worker has been killed on each side. But
you could say it's probably the scouting, yeah, because Show lost that opening SCV that he sent down and hasn't scouted since, and then Huck lost. When did he lose one? I can't remember, but yeah, it looks as if they've only lost one each. So not much economy-based harassment in this particular game. It's sort of just they're both sort of sitting back, just sort of trading units in the middle, and that's really about it for the moment.
Yeah, I think with Huck's strategy here, he needs to continue what he's doing, but if he could afford a warp prism, just warp it in the back there and stop some of the production for Show, and Show the same thing. I think if he can do a little more harassment with some dropships to move around in the back and hurt the economy of Huck and to set him back a bit, that could really be in favor for him. He's building more command centers in the bottom area there.
And that particular part of Show's game, especially considering that, well, from what I know of playing Terran, this is actually a really early time to start doing this mass orbital style play. Obviously, when it comes to end game, you know it's a real bonus to have just a lot of orbitals and no SCVs because you can utilize some mules. But I think just because it's so early, it's quite interesting considering the fact that he doesn't actually scan. So you could make the argument that because he doesn't ever check for things, he may just be wanting, just in case, to have a couple of extra scans, especially considering that mothership is out.
Of course, of course. All right, my friend, well, we're at 1940, and I'll go ahead and count us down. 3, 2, 1, go. And the probes on one of the bases is probably mined out of the minerals there is going to move to Puck's fourth, the bottom of the map. But that one Marine from Show has scouted the area and is doing whatever damage he can to that assimilator. Another way of good map control is to position those one units in the different areas where your opponent can expand, just to see when they expand and to devote some of your forces to harass those probes or to completely wipe out the expansion altogether.
That's right. I mean, that one Marine there, not only is it going to just, as we can see there, just one Zealot had to be sent down there to take care of that Marine, but also just puts that knowledge, of course, for Show. Like, it's one of the only things that he's actually scouted on the map. If you have a look at his vision, they're the only two buildings that he has actually seen in this entire game. So, again, another sort of interesting part of the way Show plays.
Most definitely. It looks like Show is kind of moving his forces in the mid there, but there's a lot of Zealots and a few Stalkers around that corner with the sight from the Zelnaga Towers, showing what Show's doing, and Show's command center is going to get destroyed by those Zealots. And the Stalkers are moving in. Oh, there's the Vortex. Oh, and those Stalkers take out that medevac.
Beautiful snipe on that.
Yeah, that was very nice.
And it's just those little things, especially at this time where what Huck really wants to be doing is just buying some time for those carriers to come out. As we can have a look at their supply, they both are maxed out, which is all fair enough, but Huck still probably just needs to get, there are a couple of carriers building. Yeah, there's 2 carriers still building, not to mention +1 to weapons and armor on the way for the air units, which you rarely ever see in these games. But he's just buying a little bit of time just to make sure he can get these carriers out, and obviously it'll be quite a big surprise for Show once they come into range, because he's not scouted at all. So
those SCVs are going to get killed, just rolling right through the middle of Huck's forces there as Huck moves up a little bit to take him out. A lot of High Templar with their Psionic Storm going to come in and do some damage against Sho's forces. Oh, and feedback kills the Ghost automatically. However, even EMPs are sent down to try to drain the energy of those High Templar, but there's too many of them. A lot of storms go down, and Sho's forces are a lot in the orange and the red on their HP bars. Not looking good for Sho's main force there, while Huck is going to do some harassment with those Stalkers.
He's, yeah, Sho just sort of running straight through those storms, so just deciding that he doesn't care if it's raining or not, he's just going to run straight in, and took a lot of damage there, as you said. He actually had a lot of those units down in the orange. Now, the fact that they have been healed up now, whilst it's all fine and dandy right now, the energy that was there for those could have been, the energy in the medevacs, I should say, could have been used a little bit later in a battle to save units, whereas now it's just sort of topping them up again, and it's obviously a bit of a dangerous part of the way that Sho was playing there, just running into those storms.
Yeah, and he had Ghost at the very front of his army that he could have just used Snipe or an EMP to take him out, but he might have been looking somewhere else. That's what I have an issue with sometimes, is I'll be back at my base, macroing or trying to build a new building, and I'm not looking on the mini-map when I need to, and I don't see those units heading towards mine that could do some major damage. However, Sho is moving in. He's going to take out this expansion in the middle to the right of Huck's forces, but his forces are going to take the surround from behind, and there are the carriers with the interceptors. Oh my goodness.
Coming straight in with their, they do have the +1/1, I believe. Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do.
+2/2 is on the way. But as we can see there, as well as that, the Graviton Catapult, I believe it's called. I don't know. Even as a Protoss, I'm not actually sure what the name of that thing is, but taking out a lot of the Marines there, as we saw, there were a few more Marines than what are currently left over. There's probably around about, about 10 Marines left over, and with some good micro, Huck should be able to dispose of the rest of these Marines that are just crawling around the map. As we can see, Sho actually stimming up to try and run away from the carriers, but there are more coming in from the sides and more being built down in the main of Huck as well.
Yeah, the Zealots had gotten taken out by Sho's forces, but those carriers just mopped up whatever was left, and the Marauders cannot hit carriers. Even though they launch rockets, the rockets only go straight and not up.
Exactly right.
Which is unfortunate for the Terran.
You just want to get the Marauders drunk so they fall over and actually can shoot up. That's what I'd do.
Yeah.
Here, boys, have a couple of have a glass of this, and we're actually shooting at things in the sky.
Yeah, I'm sure the Terran can figure out a way for that to happen. Oh, there's some more Psionic Storms taking out more of Sho's forces. He has got to get out of the carrier's head, even though semi-slow can move in for the kill. I really like the design of the carriers. They still add an homage to the older Brood War carriers, but just the 3D modeling of them, the lighting effects, and especially the interceptors come right out and go right in is pretty cool. It's pretty much the same unit from Brood War.
Yeah, it's they're really nice. What I would have really loved was that you remember that the actual sound that they made when they launched the interceptors in Brood War? That would have been awesome if they had kept that in.
Yeah.
I love that sound. It was like the coolest thing ever. You just suddenly, like, you know, the map opens up and suddenly you just hear that sound and it's like, uh-oh, we got trouble coming along.
Definitely. Well, I always love the Arbiter voice on how he talks, which is pretty cool.
He was very cool. He's just like that uncle who you have who's just actually just really cool, and he's like, yeah, what's going on?
Well, for the Protoss, the main voice for your base is a voice for the guy that played the Adjudicator in Brood War, and
Right.
he also played Archbishop Lazarus in Diablo 3.
Lazarus.
Yeah, and he was the voice in a lot of Diablo 3 tomes. He was the what was the sergeant, or who's the guy in Metal Gear Solid? He was your boss.
All right.
Yeah, he is a fantastic voice actor, and I'm really glad they brought him back for StarCraft 2, even though he really wasn't in the campaign, but being in the multiplayer. And hopefully he'll be in Legacy of the Void. And there's the nuke taking out some of the carriers, but not enough. Huck says it tickles. Wow.
He's, obviously not too phased by that. Still 6 carries in the sky, or 7 in fact, which is obviously still it's getting a little bit lower. Some of these do have low shields, and the interesting thing which I've seen, because I've actually grabbed a few replays recently from the Korean ladder where people do get carriers, and there's this weird trend where the only thing left over for the Terran will be ghosts, and if they cloak and seemingly Protoss at this stage never have observers in the sky. The ghosts just start ripping through the carriers. It's incredibly crazy to see. And as we can see here, there are those, what are there? There's 5 ghosts on the ground. They don't have cloak at the moment, but they are shooting away at those interceptors. They may go down, but it's just really weird to see that sort of thing happen at this sort of endgame situation.
Yeah, I thought it was really weird to see the Broodlords being taken out by ghosts, but the incredible strategy of using them and their snipe is pretty cool to see. Ghosts, you only think they're good for nukes and EMPs, but they could still dish out some damage. They're still trying to take out more of those carriers. Oh, an EMP goes down, and they're just sniping them down. And then with the cloak, Huck can't see him, and those, oh my goodness, I've never seen this before. These ghosts are probably going to take out these carriers.
They're just tearing them apart. They do have the +3 to upgrades, doing 13 damage per shot, and I'm pretty sure they have a decent speed. Yeah, 1.5 on their shots, but it's still not bad, especially considering there are 5 of them. If not to mention those Vikings that are in the sky as well, which is really going to help out with that. And we have another nuke building for Show just in the main base there at one of the Ghost Academies.
Wow, that is pretty impressive for Show to keep the fight going with those ghosts. I'm sure that even if they die in battle, they'll get a medal for that, for taking out those carriers. It kind of reminds me of, I don't know if you ever played Star Wars The Force Unleashed, when you crippled that Star Destroyer and brought it to the ground. It kind of feels like that with this ghost with the large rifles taking out these huge battleships.
Exactly. It reminds me of I think in GSL we see from time to time, we actually see battle cruisers versus Marines, and Marines are just standing on the ground, they stim away, and just somehow they still destroy battle cruisers, providing they have enough numbers, and it's just crazy to see. It's like this guy standing on the ground shooting a rifle at a big battleship in the sky, and it's like, I'm not sure why that's doing anything, but it certainly is.
Yeah, and well, Huck throwing down some more ghosts. A lot of carriers, though, trying to take out one of his expansions. The SCVs are trying to repair. The ghosts are going to move in, try to do some damage against those carriers. However, the interceptors are going to take them out. And good game. What an incredible use of ghosts from Show. Once again, highlighting a strategy that we have not really seen in StarCraft 2, but the evolution of the game and the different players and their play styles have showed that these, no pun intended, have these... I've showed that these units have different vitalities to them or different strategies to them. I think that is really awesome about the game.
That's right, and I think whilst I don't think it'll be the be-all and end-all of taking down carriers if they do come into the game, as I said, a lot of Protoss players at that sort of in this sort of 20-minute to later situation actually don't have like as much control of their observers, or don't actually have any observers out. I think if we check the units tab, Huck doesn't have any out. So in theory, I suppose you could say if you get a few ghosts out and actually use their EMPs properly, take down the shields of the carriers, they only have that, well, I suppose when you say only, it's a relative term, but they've got the 300 health there, and if you've got, 6, 7 ghosts on the ground with some with their cloak on, they can sit there all day and just take down the carriers. So it's one thing to consider, and as I said, it's not going to be, it's not always going to work, but it's certainly something to consider if you're against the carriers like that.
Well, yeah, and then if you're in mid-game or late-game Protoss as a Terran, you definitely want to be making ghosts, but I don't think you want to be sacrificing continuing to make Marines and Marauders and even Vikings to try to take care of the carriers. But so, I've always found that stimmed Marines can really start to take down those interceptors, but I mean, you got to avoid the storms, and if they have Colossus, I mean, then those Marines are going to get fried. So, but in my personal experience, whenever I see a Protoss making carriers, I think, well, what unit can I make, or do I already have in the field? Oh, I know, Marines. First unit I can make besides SCVs to deal with them.
It's like WD-40. It fixes everything.
Well, it's good for the Terran, man, because sometimes it feels that the strength of the Protoss or the sheer amount of units from the Zerg can just completely overwhelm the Terran if you're not, harassing at mid or even early or mid-game, or haven't taken the expansion at the right time, or not having enough produced units. But that's true for all races. You have to use each race's strength to really get the victory. And for Terran, I think it's a balance of both power and number, and making sure getting those upgrades and microwings. So But then,
Exactly.
I mean, I'm sure you could say the same thing for Protoss.
It's definitely. I think with Protoss as well, it really depends on your composition a lot as well. Like from time to time when you're playing Terran, it doesn't, as you said, it doesn't always depend on exactly which particular units you pick. But if you pick a large group of a type of unit, like if you have a lot of Marine, Marauder, and Medevac, you're going to do well, like regardless of the situation. And if you have the control and the power with you, you can do a good job. But with Protoss, it's really, especially against Zerg, I've found, it's a matter of actually having the right composition. So making those sorts of decisions is one thing you certainly can admire about some of the higher level Protoss players, such as Huck.
Exactly. And the best way to find out those compositions is, to watch the pros and then play. Because myself, I am not going to be at the same level of the pros, and I can't execute the same way they can. But I can be inspired by what they do. I can definitely look at their build orders at the beginning of the game, know when to push out, know when to get what type of upgrades, know when to expand, and to follow as their playstyle a template, and then to, add whenever I need to for me to better understand the game, to keep my APM at a high level, and not to keep thinking, okay, what should I do? What did Huck do? What did Huck do? What did Show do? But just to evolve into something. And if you lose, yes, you're going to be frustrated, but take a breath and realize, okay, this is a learning situation. It's not the end of the world. Unlike some people who will just spam me, say I suck, as they're the ones I had to leave the game and stuff like that. So
Or GG early or something like that.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, Duckville, thank you so much for joining me for this game. I know we wanted to kind of look at it in a different light. You have this game casted on MLG.TV that people can check it out. Of course, you always do a great job with your games. Is there anything you wanted to add before we sign off here?
No, it's been a pleasure being with you on the show, and hopefully we can see some more stuff coming out soon.
All right, Duckville, thank you so much.
No worries, thank you.